Hey, it's Joe Neiman, and I'm joined by Joe Guerra here, who's our general manager. And wanted to take a little time today and introduce Joe, talk about his background, what got him here, and why we're so excited working together.
Yeah, so I think while we were filming Will's kind of background biography, we realized that I just popped up in a van with you one day, and you had a lot of people didn't know who I was. So just want to give a little bit of background. So started out, from Buffalo, New York. Grew up loving cars, loving working on engines, and by no means am I a full-blown mechanic or ASC certified or anything like that, but just always tinkering around with those things. But had a love for cars, so got into the industry at a pretty young age. I was doing some things for dealerships around 16 years old or when I can drive, but really started working full-time at a dealership while I was going to school full-time at University of Buffalo for business. Also was detailing cars, kind of that, all around jack of all trades guy, lot guy. And I realized that I really enjoyed working at the dealership. So I wanted to do as much as I could to learn as much as I could about the business as a whole. So started to do little things like, dealer trades. At the time, we're talking, this is 06. I started at a Pontiac store. So we were arming some cars from other dealers. I go pick them up, do the paperwork, take the cars to, at the time, Odessa, Buffalo, and run titles up there, run cars up there, and it was fun. I always thought it was interesting. I thought
You got to see behind the business. A lot of salespeople don't really see what goes on
exactly
in the background,
and especially being in lot inventory management, detail. It was really, I'm grateful that I was afforded the opportunity to kind of step outside of the dealership and do those things. So shortly after that, the franchise was sold to, coincidentally, a Hummer dealership, which obviously we know no longer exists as well. So we got to experience the whole cash for clunkers thing, and that was, interesting and a cool thing to learn about as well, but a little sad because I saw some pretty nice cars that would be worth a lot of money today get destroyed. But made it through that, got through college, and ended up working at a large group at a Toyota store for about 7 years. Tried a couple different things out throughout those 7 years, but I was in my early mid-20s, just trying to kind of find my way, and luckily I'll be forever grateful, but the GMs that I had at the time kept kind of pulling me back and saying no, refocus, this is where you belong, and they were right. I'm really happy that they kind of kept me in the automotive business. After that time, we'll fast forward to ACV. I get a phone call one day from someone that worked at ACV and said, I really think you should apply, and kind of the rest is history, but we'll get into that in a second. But that's when I got hired in earlier on in the days. My first day at ACV, sat on one of those yoga balls or what, workout balls at a folding table. So they didn't even have a chair for me. It was,
well, we were in hyper growth mode, during that time. When you came in, the company was just mushroom clouding, and it was great. But you came in the arbitration department, correct?
Correct. Yep. So started out in ARB, never left ARB, was there for 4.5, almost 5 years. And throughout that time, and it was fun because you got to see the company grow from sitting on, a workout ball to, moving to an entirely different office space and growing from a 4-person team to eventually getting into a leadership role a couple of years in. And, by the time I had left, ACV, was overseeing somewhere in the realm of 60 people in the department, which was, so I thought a really, big accomplishment for the team as a whole. I thought that everybody worked well together, and throughout the time there, especially the leadership role, got to see so many different sides of the business, the way so many different dealerships operate, from buy here, pay here's to independents to franchises to franchise groups to, and really am thankful for the opportunities I got to speak with the owners of these dealerships. So get to learn their struggles, learned what arbitration was all about, and what really causes an arbitration. There's a few different things I like to say in my kind of book, and I would talk to different territory managers and regional sales directors about this, but there's a lot that feeds into the arbitration funnel. There's a lot of things throughout the process that can kind of go wrong. Some are malicious, some are not, and it just, at the end of the day, some are just, they're machines and they break.
Yep.
So learning that there's never usually a winner, right? You know, it's in any mediation.
Well, you're in arbitration. Like, I think some of the most valuable lessons learned come from the most painful experiences. And in arbitration, every day in the role that you were in, and then eventually leading a team of 60 people that are on calls and trying to do damage control, it's really an art more than anything to find the path through with the least collateral damage for everyone in these situations. And I think the raw experience and the lifetimes of car dealership experience that you've earned and learned, in your time doing that, like nobody else has that background. You saw so much, you learned so much. Good dealers, bad dealers, good cars, bad cars, right? And it all gets, as I like to say, like thrown in the blender, and somehow you got to make sense out of it. But it's almost like every arbitration I've ever been involved in, and I got pulled into a lot of them, and you and I used to collaborate on a lot of things and policy decisions and just individual case decisions, looking at the history of these dealers. It's always subjective, or it's almost always subjective. Like, everybody wants a black and white, let's have a policy for this situation. And you and I were joking around before we even started recording about, is a hole in a frame 5/8 of an inch, or is it 3/8 of an inch, or
depending on which way you measure it, and which direction and angle, and did you play around with the hole a little bit?
Could you jam a screwdriver with a hammer through it to make sure that it's 3/4 of an inch, and then triggers and
that goes back to that malicious side of things. Not all of them are, but
right.
But yeah, I think you make a good point, and it really goes back to one of our original conversations: is used cars are not commodities, and that's why you can't standardize the arbitration process, because they're all different. You move a hole a little bit, now it's frame damage. You move a back a little, now it's not. And two, right, the untrained eye, rot might be rot, but in different places, it's considered different things, and different cars have different parts. And so it makes it very difficult to standardize such a process when, to your point, used cars just aren't commodities.
No, they never will be. They're as individual as people, honestly, because people drive them and people maintain them, or people neglect them and people crash them. And the end of the life cycle of that car, or the next time that folks like us get to see that car when it pops up as a trade-in, or it's just a moment in time. It's that car's story up to today.
Well, I think that was what made some of this fun too along the way. There was a lot of learning experiences, and I'm not saying some of the conversations that I or the team had to have it wasn't always fun, but you learned a lot from it. And growing in that leadership role, arbitration really has a little hand in every department or business unit at the auction, because you've got to know about the titles, you've got to know about payments. If there's an unwind, how was it paid for? How are we going to? So there's a lot there.
A lot of overlap. Transportation.
Was this, in fact, transportation damage? Was it not transportation damage? Did somebody miss it in the So there's a lot with transportation. Also, time frames. How long did a car take to get somewhere? So the really neat thing about arbitration, and that I was appreciative of, is being exposed to really operations at the auction as a whole. So sat in a ton of ops meetings, a ton of improvement meetings to really, help fine tune. And, eventually, kind of as you had mentioned before on one of your previous podcasts, it's just, a little bit, I don't want to say it outgrew me, or I outgrew it, or anything like that, but another opportunity did eventually come along where, I was able to work at a 3-store group, and I decided to hop on that opportunity, and I'm grateful for that as well, because it allowed me to kind of take what was learned and what I was involved in working on at ACV and actually use it. I got to use the product.
You saw best practices, you saw bad practices, right? Like, you got to take the best of the best and migrate those into a dealership that was looking to modernize and make change, right? That's why they brought you in.
Yep. And the interesting thing about it is when you have a different view when you're at a different company. So when you're at, we'll just use ACV, you look at the industry in a little bit different light. Then when you're in the industry, you look at the auction in a different light.
Sure.
And I had been there, and I still was like, wait a minute, this doesn't seem to, I remember why this is done in a particular way. So, but getting able to use the platform, I think over the course of it was there for a little over a year, but a few hundred times, and then getting to compare it with selling direct to wholesale.
Right. So selling cars on digital marketplaces, selling wholesale cars hundreds and hundreds of times, right? Hundreds of cars sold.
Yep. And correctly.
Hand selling cars to wholesalers, shipping cars to physical auctions to sell them.
And seeing the pain points associated with each, right? So you can really understand the pros. What did I like about this process? What did I dislike about this process? And where did I get the most money? Where, at least perceive the most money.
Of course,
a lot of times
perception is
you'll
reality.
never know, right?
Yep.
But it was great to have come from the industry, and I guess we'll also say pre-pandemic industry. So earlier on, back in the Pontiac days, learn things throughout that time.
Yep.
And then be able to apply that to the auction side of the business, but then learn the innards of the auction side of the business and start to apply that on that last little over a year of my career managing a dealership was okay. Like now I know how it works on the inside. So it was nice to have kind of the auction experience right in the middle, dealership experience on either end.
Yep.
And eventually you and I stayed in touch and
packed up a minivan and drove you down to Florida.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, one of the other reasons for the intro and background was I just randomly, like I said, popped up, and I swear I'm not just Joe's chauffeur to Florida. So, but yeah,
I drove half that trip.
You did, yeah, you did. I fell asleep, so I appreciate that. But yeah, it was so we stayed in touch. We've had similar ideas throughout all the time at ACV. We butted heads a few times, but we also, we're like-minded in a lot of the things that we wanted to accomplish. And
well, it's a nerdy thing or a unique thing, but to be this nerdy about wholesale cars, wholesale marketplaces, but we are, right? And you've got, much like I've got, really this holistic experience over the past 2 decades of working in dealerships, working in auctions, sending cars to auctions, using the platforms. It's actually very unique. It's not common to have that much of a catbird seat, if you will, and to be able to see the industry and see how the industry changes and see what doesn't change over time and where those best practices are. And so, we're super excited to have you, obviously, here at Dealer Club, and we're getting closer and closer to launch, and I think it's important that our customers, right, people that are potential customers, but people that are watching this, know who we are behind the scenes, and know that we do have real world experience, and know we're not just trying to come up with some new buzzy platform or anything like that. This really is for dealers by dealers, and meant to be a success for everyone involved.
Yeah. I appreciate you bringing me on board after some discussions, and it's going to be a great opportunity. But the end goal here is exactly that. Like, we've felt the pain. We want to help, and we've seen the successes, and we want to be able to help dealers, share in those successes. So, hopefully some of either the content and or the platform itself helps bring those experiences, and that's the end goal, at least for me, and I think it is for you too. So,
yep. Looking forward to working together with you. So
same, yeah. So follow us for more. We'll probably have more of these intros as we bring more people onto the team. But super excited for what we're able to bring to you, and I know Joe is as well. So
that's right.
We'll catch you on the next one.